I was 18 years old. I was brainwashed by militant movements growing up and stuff like that.
I acknowledge the acts, but I do not plead guilty. I'll claim that I was doing it in self-defense.
I don't regret the incident that happened. And I know that what I've done is a sin.
I truly believe God has forgiven Jeremy and I. I hope you will too.
Sometimes the scariest killers aren't strangers lurking in the night. Sometimes they're the people we trust, the neighbors who smile at us in the parking lot, the roommates who sit across the same dining table. And sometimes the danger comes from a belief so twisted that it convinces ordinary humans they are soldiers in a war only they can see. Tonight, we look at 3 cases where extremism stepped into the real world, and violence became the only language left. He once worshipped hate. Then he said he found God. But the ideology he ran from was still inside him, just wearing a different mask. This is where we begin.
He told police, I just blast him. You shot him twice in the head.
Yeah.
What rifle?
The AK-47.
In a Tampa apartment, May 2017. Devon Arthurs, 18 years old, a former neo-Nazi who suddenly converted to Islam, living with 4 roommates who were still loyal to the Atomwaffen division, one of the most extreme hate groups known. They mocked his new religion. They laughed at his attempt to leave hate behind. And Arthurs decided mockery was a death sentence. Inside the apartment, he grabbed a gun. Jeremy Himmelman, 22 years old, didn't have time to understand what was happening before the trigger was pulled. 18-year-old Andrew Unschuk never saw the second gunshot coming. Arthurs didn't run. He left the bodies behind like a message. You laughed at my beliefs. Now I'm righteous outside. He held hostages and screamed about revenge, about bombs, about a Fourth Reich rising. The police found explosives inside the home, evidence of the very hate he claimed he tried to escape. During interrogation, he confessed plainly. He killed because he believed his former brothers were planning terror. He killed because he felt chosen. He killed because anger doesn't turn into faith just because you switch the name of the god.
I could have killed everybody in that building, and I didn't. I could have killed those 2 officers, and I didn't.
In court, his behavior was erratic. One day he seemed calm and logical. The next, he tried choking himself mid-hearing, collapsing to the floor while guards rushed in. A doctor testified he was intentionally cutting off blood flow to faint. A performance? A breakdown? The justice system didn't gamble on guesswork. Arthurs accepted a plea. 2 counts of second-degree murder. 45 years in prison. Not a martyr. Not a soldier. Just a young man who believed ideology could erase accountability. It never does. But belief takes many shapes.
Child molesters do not deserve to live. They got exactly what they deserve. Had to do it over again, I'd kill more.
Lawyer made me sick.
Do you have anything to say to the victim's family?
May they die also.
Some killers twist faith. Others twist morality. Some killers pretend they are executioners of justice. In South Carolina, July 2013, a husband and a wife wrote their own commandments in blood. Jeremy and Christine Moody were not confused about why they killed. They were proud of it. The Parkers, Marvin and Gretchen, were tied up, stabbed, and shot. They were targeted because Marvin Parker was a registered sex offender. The Moodys found his address on the registry, drove to his home, and called themselves Angels of Punishment. Surveillance footage caught the abduction. White supremacist tattoos covered Jeremy's neck and hands, a billboard of hate he wasn't shy about. In court, they smiled. They bragged. They spoke of God and cleansing and crusades. Jeremy said, "Killing that pedophile was the best day of my life." Christine asked the judge to let them serve time together so they could grow old as husband and wife. The judge didn't see vigilantes. He saw murderers who enjoyed the power of deciding who lives and who dies. And what came next showed their real truth. After sentencing, life in prison without parole, they shouted that they would do it again. That more people deserved to die. No remorse. Just devotion to an ideology that replaces empathy with a target list.
I think Jeremy and I would have done it again if given the opportunity.
Do you have any regrets?
I have no regrets.
The courtroom didn't just witness a crime. It witnessed the celebration of one. And that may be the darkest part.
I acknowledge the acts, but I do not plead guilty. I'll claim that I was doing it in self-defense.
But our final case is even darker. Because sometimes, one person decides an entire country is the enemy. July 22, 2011. Norway. The calm streets of Oslo were shattered by an explosion so violent that buildings crumbled and smoke swallowed the skyline. 8 people died instantly. Hundreds were injured. While emergency crews rushed in, one man quietly walked away in a fake police uniform. His name was Anders Breivik, and that bomb was only the beginning. On the island of Utoya, more than 500 teenagers attended a political summer camp. They were laughing, swimming, taking photos, believing the world was theirs to shape. Then Breivik arrived, claiming to be there for their safety. He raised his rifle and began shooting children as they ran, as they hid behind trees, as they swam into icy water, praying the current could save them. 69 people, mostly young teens, never made it home. The deadliest attack in Norway since World War II, carried out by one man with a gun and a manifesto. Breivik planned everything. He wrote 1,500 pages justifying genocide, blaming multiculturalism for the world's problems, believing he was starting a war. When police finally cornered him, he surrendered calmly, like someone who thought history would thank him. He wanted a stage, and the courtroom gave him a microphone he didn't deserve. He smirked. He saluted. He called his actions necessary. The survivors cried. Families stared at the man who shot their children and showed no grief, only pride. Norwegian law doesn't use the death penalty. Instead, the judge sentenced Breivik to 21 years of preventive detention, with extensions possible as long as he remains a threat. And he will remain a threat, because hatred built on fantasy never admits defeat. It just waits. 3 crimes. 3 ideologies. 3 moments where belief turned into bloodshed. Devon Arthurs thought he was punishing future killers. The Moodys thought they were executing moral judgment. Anders Breivik thought he was rewriting the destiny of Europe. They called it purpose. Courts called it murder. And the families, they just call it loss. Think about what remains. In Tampa, 2 parents who will never hear their son's footsteps again. In South Carolina, a violent death remembered. No less tragic just because society judged the victim's past. In Norway, 77 memorials stand against the arrogance of hate. No court ruling resurrects the dead. No sentence returns the heartbeat that stopped because someone mistook vengeance for truth. We watch these cases because there's a question we're terrified to ask. How many others believe they are heroes in a story written only inside their own head? Those are the people justice must find before another ideology loads another gun. If you're still here, it means the weight of these stories hit you. Let that weight remind us why we cannot ignore the early signs. The slurs laughed off, the online manifestos shared in shadows, the anger that treats opinions like enemies. Extremism grows quietly, until it screams. Subscribe if you want to help us expose more stories like these. Your curiosity isn't morbid, it's responsible. Because the moment the world stops paying attention, that's the moment someone else decides they have a mission worth killing for.